Today, we are going to learn a little bit more about variables. So mainly we've seen variables before, but this time it's going to be about a specific type of variables that we covered before, which is strings. And we're going to learn about modifying strings, okay? So everything we had so far, like we went through variables in details, but I believe that more details are needed further when it comes to string manipulation, okay? So this is what we are going to do today, and we will not define we are going to use existing methods that deal with strings, which means that when we are manipulating strings, we can just use some existing methods. And this is what we are going to learn today. We're going to apply existing methods on strings, okay? But so what I will show you exactly is how to use these methods, how to manipulate strings, and again, we are going to do like some coding in PyCharm for today. And so we are going just to open PyCharm, and we are going to create in here a new, I would say, script. So mainly whatever scripts that I do create during the class, recording, I share with you. So you always have the access to the code I write, or let's say the script that I write, okay? So we will call our file or Python script for today names, okay? Because we are going to manipulate names. So this is going to show like names.py for you. And this is a Python file, okay? Now it's creating our, I would say, empty file. What are we going to do is that we are going to try to define some variable. So, okay, our variable for today is going to be named book. And let's suppose that the book name is kind of Python for beginners, okay? And whenever we are writing something, or let's imagine that the user is writing something, so nothing can stop me from writing it in a kind of a mixture of uppercase, lowercase. So no one is stopping me, okay? Let's suppose that I'm writing Python beginner or beginners like this, okay? No, what type is this variable named book? So as it is a string, so be careful, we must not forget our, it's up to you, whether you want to use simple code like we said, or you would use double quote. So in both cases now, we are having a variable named book, and it's written somehow. We'll understand the reason why we are writing it like this, but later, okay? So let's see, or let's print now our variable. So let's print this book. I'm going just to run, and here it is. So we can see Python for Beginner. This is the title of the book, just written as it was given to the input, okay? So just displaying the name of the book as it is, okay? And I just, like you can see, it contains kind of upper and lower letters, okay? So, for example, the P for Python here, you can see it's a lowercase. See here, it's the same thing, okay? So just keep this in mind. Now, what we can do is that we are today, as I mentioned, going to explore some methods that we can apply on variables. So given now the book, I can try to see it or print it as a title, okay? So there is a method called title that I can apply on the book this string variable, okay? Because this method only applies on strings, okay? I will come back to this point, but let's do it, okay? So I will have book.title, and don't forget that whenever we call some method, there is this piece like parentheses. So we need to make sure that we have the variable, okay? Then we have dot, which means that we are calling some method, and the method, like you see for, like you have your parentheses. So you need to make sure that you have that, okay? Now, just I'm going to click on run. So what we will see, just see Python for beginners. It is written as a title, okay? So this method, which is title method here, it actually like changes each word in my string. So it's like applied to the book variable, and then it's changing like each like letter, which is not, let's say, mainly not well like not written in the right, like, or how it's really supposed to be written, okay? So we just try to write it kind of, I would say, in the title style, okay? So mainly this is a method, okay? And it is kind of applied on a given like variable, and the type of this variable is string, okay? So if, for example, I'm going to try to just print title, okay? So I am trying to print this method. So let's run it, and oops. So here what you have, it's not defined. So there is an error generated, okay? So it's exactly similar to the print function, okay? And make sure that whenever I'm saying print, it's a function. Now, title here is a method, okay? But it's kind of similar to this print function. Like if, for example, I make here some missing parentheses, it can also generate an error. So it has its own syntax, and it has, for example, on what I need to apply that, and it has its own rules. So here we need to make sure that we do respect these rules. So for example, we start with the open parenthesis, then we close that parenthesis for the title of the method. Again, every method it's like followed by a set of parentheses, because methods, they often need some additional informations. In this case, it's not there because when we do dot title, there is no additional information. But in some cases, we do need this additional information for the method so they would be able to do their work, okay? So that information could be provided inside the parentheses. Like in our case, we don't have that, but for example, for print, you kind of provide something, okay, to call that function, okay? But for method, in this case, for our title, we don't need, okay? But we need to maintain and keep our parentheses, okay? We just keep it as it is, so you guys have the traces of what I'm exactly doing. Now, I'm going to run print book title. Okay, so it's working, okay? Now, because now this title function, it's kind of specific, okay, to strings, because if I have some book here, the type here is a string. So we have some methods that are like specific to the strings, some methods probably that we can only use on, for example, numbers, or it depends. So we make sure that as this method, it refers to like this title thing, refers to something specific, which is strings. So this is why we say it's a method, okay? However, like I would say, there is a contradiction with the print here. Print is a function, which means that it has like a general purpose, I would say. It has like, doesn't like only function or work when you give it string. You can print anything else. You can print numbers, you can print lists, you can try to print any, like if I print 1, 2, 3, it will print. If I will print a list having 1, 2, 3, it will print. If I will print hello, it will print. So if it's not specific to like an exact, I would say, data type or data type, yeah. So this is, if it's not specific, then it's a function. If it is specific, like something title, for example, is specific to exactly strings, then it's a method, okay? So mainly this is the main difference between functions like print that are not tied to any specific data type, and we can use print, for example, to display anything, as I'm mentioning. It's a general purpose tool, let's say. So it can work no matter the kind of object like that you give to the print. It's going to print that. But for the method, like I'm mentioning, it has the specific object type that it's going to handle. It can handle like strings. And in this case, probably we have more than title method. We have, for example, the upper method that you will see later. We will have the lower method, also we will cover this later. So we'll see all this. Now, like if I am going to just try again, for example, to print now my book, what I will do, going to print my book, okay? So what's happening? I'm defining the book name and then I try to print. So I see that it is the way I wrote, there is no changes, okay? Then I try to apply within the print function the title method. So this title method make things, I would say, more clear, more organized, looking like a title. And so we have only the, for each like word, only the first letter is capitalized, okay? Now if I'm going to print a book, and let's see what will happen. I will find that, see, it's messy again, which means that whatever changes that the dot title like function made, that changes were not like saved. This is why when we print it for the second time, we do not have that like changes, I would say, concern. So what's really happening is that the changes that the dot title method is applying to the string, in this case, the book name or title, are kind of temporary. And they're not capitalized like forever. Whenever in your program you're going to call, you will find it's just temporarily capitalizing it or kind of showing it with a title case and then just go back to its original form, okay? So please note that this title method does not change or modify the original string. This is what I want to let you know, okay? So in fact, this kind of dot title method is doing, it's mainly creating a new string and then making that changes in there, then returning that new. So the original message is not modified at all, okay? Now, let's come back to our slides and what we have. So we are going to learn about changing case. So the way it works, actually, how? It's kind of very similar to the operations. So with order of operation, like you start with the innermost parenthesis, like for example, you have 1 plus, I would say, 2 multiplied by 3 inner parentheses. We always learn that it's kind of closed box. And we start from the inner one. Okay, so this is the same rule that applies in this case. And so you start with the innermost, I would say, parentheses. So in this case, so here, which is the parentheses that we are having like inside, it's the one for title. And then we have the one for the print. So we are applying dot title method on book. The result, which is temporary, as we said, we are just kind of printing it, okay? So it's very simple. We apply it there and it's not modified forever. So just kind of creating a copy and working on that copy, returning that, okay? And that result is then printed to the screen. And that is what we just see right now, okay? So this is probably very similar to algebra, okay? So let's remember, if I have, for example, I would say one variable named x, okay? And this x is equal to 4 plus 7, so which is equal to 11, okay? And then I have somewhere else y, and then y is x multiplied by 3. So for x, we said it's 11. When I'm going to multiply 11 by 3, I am going to get the value 33. So the question now, does y change the value for x here, or is just using it temporarily? So if you are able to answer this question, it's exactly the same thing that is happening, okay? So I won't just forget about it. And this is just kind of an illustration, okay? So mainly I want that to use, if later in my program, or I want to use x, so the value of x is that initial one, that 11 that I can use, okay? So it's not almost, it doesn't change actually, okay? Something also here in the case of like, we are applying the dot title method, okay? It's exactly similar to this. So we have this variable, which is going, I would say, to be considered as a copy from it. We are going to change the first like letters from each word to like uppercase. Other letters we are going to keep them like with a lowercase. And so we are going to return this, I would say temporarily again, obtained result. Okay, so this result is not like forever. It's just creating a temporary variable, and then it throws it away whenever you are done. So once printed, it's gone. If we try to print again, it's not there, okay? So it's a variable that Python uses, but you don't have to worry about it, okay? Like for example, I could show you probably another variable, like if we make some different variable with a different name. Let's say we had a book, okay? Now we can make it even book title or title for the book or title, okay, book. And for this, a new like variable, I am going to make it book dot title. So I am going to apply this method dot title on the string variable, which is already named book, that I have defined it somewhere in my code above. So here the result is gonna be saved, I would say, in some variable, okay? And so this is, if I'm going to print now, okay, this same variable as it is written, which is title book, applying the title function to the book. So here probably it's going to be saved forever in this like variable, okay? So here it's different from printing it without saving it in some, I would say, variable, or applying the method, saving in some variable. So whenever you're going to call, you're going to find that, I would say, copy, save it for you, and it mainly like works like that, okay? It's gonna, okay. So I wish that everything is clear, and let's, oops, let's just move on. Maybe let's all this. Okay, so now what are we going to cover? It's mainly some errors, some common errors, okay? So in this case, I am defining a name, and the name like Adalo Glaze, and I'm going to print same way we did name.title, which means that we are going to print the first letters, the A and L in this case, with the uppercase. So if we are going to print like again the name, so in this case there are no changes, because this I'm not saving somewhere in some variable and then I'm printing them that variable. It's the same example that we did, okay? So title does not change the value of the name, only like what gets printed in the screen, okay? And here probably I can let you like go through some errors to kind of practice for your homeworks probably, or your labs or your exam. So here what we have, book and the book name, and then I'm trying to print the book dot title and trying to print the book. However, this is generating an error, okay? And my question is, what is the error here, okay? So how to fix this error if you are discovering that? So try to pause the video, try to think of it, and then I will tell you. Okay, so we're trying to apply the method title, which only works given a string data type. And my variable book here is not showing that it looks like string. So how Python understands that given variable is a string? It's like whether you're going to add simple or double quotes, okay? So this is the concept, fine. And now let's take another example or other, like I would say, cases where we have other. It's not only dot title method that could be useful. There are several other methods that are available, and they that deal with the strings. Okay, we have, I already mentioned before, the upper method and the lower method. Okay, so you can just change a string to uppercase. You can change a string to lowercase. In this case, for example, let's try to print the title book or this one in upper, okay? So we have our variable name, then we add dot, start calling some method on that. And it's called, for example, upper, okay? Don't forget the parentheses, they're very important, otherwise you're going to have some error, okay? And then we see here, we have our, I would say, name of the book or title written in uppercase. So we try to do the same, same, but instead of upper, I want to have it with a lower, like, okay. And if I'm gonna just run, so I can see it here, it's lowercase. Now title is only changing the first letters, lower is making it all lowercase, but the upper is making it all uppercase, okay? So this is mainly the concept, okay? So when do you guys now think that this is useful, okay? You can just pause the video again, think about some useful scenarios, and let's come back. Okay, so probably it is useful when you are writing a Python script that just accepts input from users and you don't know or you cannot even expect how the user is going to write things. So probably in this case, it would be useful to apply upper if you need things in uppercase or lower, just if you need it in lowercase. And it's kind of a way to clean data before like using the data, exploring it or processing it, okay? So you are typing to make like let's say all the inputs provided by users, they are going to be kind of the same format, okay? Because Python is case sensitive. So try to make sure about these tests first, and then you are like ready to execute your like program, okay? So this is idea we're just mentioning about upper and lower and with illustration example. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so thank you for watching.